Welcome back, everybody. It's been a minute. Sorry for the late content, but we are back. We are live. We have a pretty cool lineup tonight. We got both Carl and Keith Johnson both joining the show. Let me get the ticker up. Trying to get my shit in order. It's been a while. Knock off the rust, you know what I mean? Yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on. The funnest thing I kind of did recently was the Deadpool 3 movie. I got to get out and see that. Absolutely loved it. Everything about that movie, just the whole. I know a lot of people give the plot line some shit, but the plot line for me as a kid from the '90s who grew up with the X-Men, the original X-Men movies, and kind of went through the whole Wolverine origins and all that stuff. It really knocked off a lot of things, and they even incorporated. 20 years ago, they're going to do a Gambit movie with Channing Tatum, and then it was like 4 years after 4 years after 4 years that movie kind of went up and down. Spotlighted, the script was picked up, dropped, and after Fox kind of sold out, it went to just to basically Marvel. It basically stopped everything. So it was really cool to see Channing Tatum after 20 years of getting this role as Gambit to really come full circle and seeing what Marvel Studios with Disney can do with all these different characters. I got to revisit Johnny Storm, played by the original Johnny Storm, so played by Chris Evans before he was Captain America, and then seeing Jessica Gardner reprise her role as Elektra again, and obviously Wesley Snipes coming back as Blade. That was just, to me, that was fantastic. It checked every single box, and if you haven't seen it, sorry for the spoiler alerts, but whatever. We'll definitely get into more of that next week too. I am planning on doing a show next week with Austin. He will be back. He is excited to be back. It just didn't work out tonight because obviously, like I was saying before, he works third shift. The guy works his ass off. And I couldn't imagine the schedule he has to maintain to work this overnight and all that stuff. But life is good for Austin. Everything's going good for him. And I will be happy to have him back in the studio next week. And then House of the Dragon. We'll get into that next week too. I've been actually geeking over everything that George R. R. Martin has made. Not so much reading, but definitely I got the Audible app, and I've been listening to a lot of books on tape throughout my workday. I just went through the Night of the Seven Kingdoms book before the show comes out next year, which is also tagged as The Tale of Dunk and Egg. Sir Duncan the Tall and Aegon Targaryen. So that whole sequence that we're going to get into with that will be fantastic. I thought season 2 of House of Dragon was slow, but obviously we're going to pick this up more with Austin. There's a lot of key things, especially that last episode where I really want to pick up, where it ended and where it's going to go according to the books. Anyways, it's spoiler alert: the book's been out for 20-some years, so if you're not caught up or dug into the lore a little bit, even after Game of Thrones, it's on you. I don't mean to spoil anything, but I like to really go into detail, what we've seen. And it kind of just, break everything down and make things more easy. I know a lot of people with, the Songs of Ice and Fire, a lot of people are kind of confused about, who people were, and how kind of the Targaryen family tree went down, and how the Stark family tree went down. So I'm really excited, especially that last clip of Cregan Stark walking through the bridge of the twins. Basically heading to war. To me, that was, if you haven't listened, read the book or got into the books at all, that was such a pivotal moment to see him go down, because eventually he is the pinpoint. He's the pinnacle of the whole storyline. And what that will mean basically to the entire, unity of the whole, Dance of Dragons is going to be really sweet. I'm going to bring in our guest, the one and only Keith Johnson. Carl is running late, so I get to pester Keith for a while. There he is right here, everybody. Say hello to Keith Johnson.
Hello there. Good to be here.
Yeah, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I've got no allergies tonight or anything, so it seems to be going good so far. Last night was a different story. But,
Oh man, I feel your pain. I've been going through this sinus thing. It's
yeah,
just been whooping my butt. But
it's all over the country too.
I seen
Not really
the mold count for this year in Wisconsin is almost double the normal seasonal.
Yeah.
But we've had so much rain here, so that has a lot to explain for it. But we can't complain because our corn crop looks fantastic this year. Like everywhere you go, farm wise, amazing. Agriculture is booming in Wisconsin right now.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's
so
very
last year, like we couldn't, like it was a miracle if we got rain, and now it seems like every other day right now we're getting rain, which is amazing. I thoroughly love seeing the farmers profit a little bit. I mean, farmers are what carries this country.
Oh yes, and you've got some beautiful country there, beautiful farmland.
Yeah, so we were talking behind the scenes. You actually have yourself a Wisconsin story.
Yeah, they did have a client out there that was under supposedly demonic attack for years, and she was saying that she couldn't possibly fit it into a book. If she wrote about it, she wouldn't be able. And this is back when I was with Ghost Hunters, and I asked her if she wanted to be on Ghost Hunters, and no, she wanted to be private. But then she wanting the whole team to come out there. While we were filming, she wanted the whole team to come out there and eventually come out in unmarked cars. So the neighbors were prone to harassing her and things like that. So it just was very, very difficult, and it wasn't really feasible. But did what I could from long distance to advise and try to network with other groups and get some people in there, which I was successful at getting some other people in there, and they were kind of mildly successful, but pretty much she was saying the things took over and she had to move out. Yeah, it actually drove her out of her house.
So when they take over, is that the sign of like true oppression?
Oh yes, yeah, that's real oppression when it's constantly at you and it's targeting people. Usually it will target one specific individual. It will pick on somebody and just target that person and keep at it. And they eventually wound up having to move out. And it did follow them to a certain extent, but not nearly like it was. And I guess eventually it did settle down. So, but they did wind up moving out. That's for sure.
So is it always all cases where they target one, or like I remember like watching the documentary Demon House, produced and directed and acted by Zach Baggins. That I'm not sure. I think it was. They claimed there was 100 demons in that house. It was just a claim. I obviously, you got to sell it. But he had the one experience of the singular demon. Is there cases where like a demon could attack multiple people in the family, or is it mainly just one?
Well, sure, it does affect the whole family, and it starts attacking everybody. If it's really, really serious, it'll start attacking everybody. But there's always one person in particular it seems to target. They're the focus, and it kind of mushrooms out from there, or it stems out from there. Start with one, and then just try to dominate the whole family. And I think more than destroy the whole family, it more tries to dominate the situation. And I've seen that happen. Actually, that does happen.
So, what defines me as a target? Is it like a mental state, like a mental health thing, or is it something more along the lines of like, Well, I picked up this bounty on the wall, and like old Western, like I picked up this bounty on the wall, and you're the guy, you're my Huckleberry, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, let's start doing things like really, really upsetting one person and trying to. The main focus is to isolate. That's the goal, to isolate a person. And then they start what's very akin to a brainwashing technique. It's like they're going to torment that person, but also try to keep them as isolated as possible. Like letting them know that nobody's going to believe them. There's no help for them, making them feel hopeless. And till they sometimes become suicidal or either they become complacent and are allowing it to take over. They're tired of fighting. They just get so worn out, tired of fighting, that they'll just stop resisting after a while. That's, of course, and that's the most dangerous part when they get.
And then that's called integration, right? Or is that
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes, right. They integrate themselves on the person and on the entire family, exactly. And they try to manipulate and break down the family and really, really try to master the situation and take over. So it is very much like a brainwashing technique.
How long does it usually take for a negative entity to fully integrate? Is it like a long trial thing, or it's just like?
Well, if it's really fierce, it can take. Usually, it takes up to 2 or 3 years for it to really. I mean, it can be faster depending on how vulnerable the people are, but it takes usually like at least a couple of years for it to really, really get deeply in, and then start taking over the main person and affecting the whole family. So about 2 to 3 years on average, although every case is different, but about average, I'd say 2 to 3 years before it really has its its claws in the situation.
So that's something that you've obviously noticed through your investigating. Like, there's like the whole timeline, the whole time lapse
Yeah.
of like, I noticed a voice here, then I started noticing scratching, 2 weeks later, and then this like kind of breaks itself down to, fully attacking.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes it takes some time off. It seems to lessen, and you think
Hey, everybody needs a vacation, Keith. Everybody needs a vacation.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true. That's true. In fact, the family, they were under a siege like that, a spiritual siege, and some things really started calming down for a while. So they thought they'd give themselves, the family thought they'd give themselves a break, and they went out to a local amusement park, went out to dinner, and just went out as a family. Really enjoyed the day, and they came home, and their house had been trashed from the inside. Door still locked, no sign of forced entry, but still things were all over the place, strewn all over the place. And this actually is the same thing that happened in the 19th century in Stratford, Connecticut. It was that was kind of like a poltergeist case, but there was strategy behind it. So I believe that was truly demonic too. The Stratford case, also known as the Phelps Mansion case in Stratford, Connecticut. That's the pastor owned the house, pastor of the local church, and they were, of course, very prim and proper. It was the Victorian era, and they started doing some seances, spirit communication, because they were hearing tapping and noises, so they wanted to communicate with it against church advice, of course. When the church officials found out, they weren't very happy with that, but Reverend Phelps and his family started holding some seances, and then it seemed to somehow it gave it permission to do to just wreak havoc within the house. And they came home from church one day, and there's all these bed sheets, and they're in praying position. They're like a congregation, and they've got the sheet wrapped up in a dummy form that's giving the sermon, and then there's all the parishioners in praying form. But you touch them, and they just fell down. They weren't wired together or anything. You touched them, and that made history. The Phelps case in Stratford, Connecticut. Very, very interesting case to actually study as far as the poltergeist case goes.
So he was a pastor himself.
Yes, he was a pastor. And was severely reprimanded for doing that spirit contact and just his parlor games. And that was very popular, of course, in the 19th century. People would get together on a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday evening, and they'd do some spirit communication. And then there was the spiritualist movement, of course. But quite a hobby with a lot of people. But then again, this guy and his family did wind up getting into trouble for it.
It's kind of crazy, though. He was a pastor. He's a man of God. And he still got attacked. And was that a case of full demonic oppression? Is that a case of did anybody actually get hurt in that, or is it just?
Well, it was more the family was getting terrorized, and then there was the backlash, the social backlash, because the pastor's superior, they came around and really had some serious talk with him, and he had to really apologize and renounce what he did. And finally, they had a big exorcism. Pastors got together and they just exorcised the whole house. As far as I know, it was successful, but there was still things going on here and there. It's like they couldn't relax for too long because something would start up again. And the house is demolished now, but supposedly it always had paranormal activity. It was even a nursing home at one time. It was a rest home, a nursing home, and they still said they had paranormal activity there until it was finally abandoned and then demolished. I have a friend. You know who Johnny Zappis is, right?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Yeah, Johnny Zappis. He lived in Stratford, and I guess he and a friend went in there when it's abandoned for years, and they were going to do their first investigation in that place, and they heard some running and banging upstairs, and he says it could have been squirrels. He wasn't sure, but they weren't staying around for it. They just hightailed it out of there, and I don't think they ever came back.
Now, John Zappis, he did a lot with Ed and Lorraine Warren, didn't he?
Oh, yes. Yeah, he was Ed Warren's blood nephew, actually, his blood nephew. Yeah, so he trained with Ed and Lorraine. Yeah.
So that must have spooked him out pretty good, because if he was around them, they seen quite a bit of stuff allegedly. It's nuts.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, he wanted to start investigating, and he got spooked out of the Phelps mansion, the abandoned Phelps mansion at the time. And he said he was going to really start investigating. Ed tried to talk him out of it, but he really wanted to start investigating. So John's mom, her nickname was Babe. That was Ed Warren's sister. She came to Ed and her brother and had a very serious talk. John's getting into this. I want you to watch out for him, or else I've got my eye on you. You take him under wing. Make sure he doesn't get into trouble. So that's why Ed agreed to take on John as a student, and he became a member of the group and went on a lot of really interesting investigations with them.
Oh man, I remember it was I think it was a documentary I seen in Amityville.
Yes.
And I remember that was my first ever introduction to John Zappis, because they had Lorraine and John. I think Ed might have been passed by then.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was just super cool. That was my first introduction. It actually really made me interested in paranormal. I seen that they had that hooded picture of that entity on the staircase. That was one of the first that was one of the big things that really made me interested in learning more about the paranormal, because I was just holy shit, that's
right. Well, and
that was before Photoshop. You know what I mean? That was before you could alter pictures like we can now. That was insane. That hooded picture was almost right above that that railing. It was a perfect picture. You can see the eyes, you can see what looks like a nose, you can see what looks like a frowning, like a mad face.
Right.
It was definitely one of the coolest, most detailed pictures. Yeah. That was probably back too. They took pictures and it rolled out of it. You know what I mean? It's like a 1-by-1 picture. That's insane.
Right.
You can't make that up. That's
right. And Ed was called in. Ed and Lorraine were called into that by Mr. Lutz, of course, and George Lutz called him in. He wouldn't go back in the house, by the way. He gave Ed the keys. Here's the keys. I'm not going back in. And they had everything left there. They had a full refrigerator. They had everything. They just packed up and left. After 28 days, they said that's it, and they just packed up and left. And there's a lot of stories, of course, that it was a hoax and it was made up with their lawyer and things like that. But I don't know. I was never there, but I did personally know 3 people who were there while the case was going on. 3 people that were alive while it was going on. I knew Ed and Lorraine, and I knew George Lutz. So they seemed very sincere. It was never really proven to be false. And of course, the DeFeo, Ron DeFeo, of course, Jr. was, a lot of that was his defense that the devil made me do it. And I guess he recanted that later. And I don't know, he changed his story 2 or 3 times, but I don't know. You never know what the truth was coming from him, because, he had committed the homicides, and he said there was a lot more to it. There was a lot more to it that was never revealed. And I don't know if we'll ever know the full story of what happened there.
Yeah, there's a lot of big cases like that really draw a lot of that attention. And the Devil Made Me Do It case, I think that was in South Carolina. That one drew a bunch of national attention.
Oh, yeah.
And he's still alive today. I think he is actually living with I think it was the Warren's grandson, whoever runs the museum. I think he's living in that house with them currently.
Right. Well, yes, the Devil Made Me Do It case, that original case was in Connecticut. But there
Okay, that was in Connecticut?
Yeah. There was another case in Carolina. Was it South Carolina?
I believe it was South Carolina. It could be North Carolina, one of the two.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
We'll just make them one state. We'll just call them Carolina. No offense to anybody else in Carolina.
Right.
Carolinas.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But the Devil Made Me Do It case, that was that was actually a true story. It's not a true story. And yeah, Arnie Johnson is still living, of course. He was the main subject of it. And
I believe, like I said, I believe he's living at the Warren Museum with the people who run it now. There's a Sean Warren that runs it.
It's actually the son-in-law.
Okay, son-in-law.
Yeah, it's actually the son-in-law, Tony Sparrow, that runs it.
Okay, Tony.
Now, and he's got all the artifacts and everything. And of course, the museum is not open to the general public, but they do take the artifacts on exhibition, different conventions and things like that, as they'll be doing late this September. They'll be taking it to Gettysburg, and they'll be displaying a lot of artifacts like the Annabelle doll, of course. Yeah, and they've got the cursed doll, the shadow doll, as they call it. That's a horrible thing to look at.
Have you been to the museum yourself?
I haven't been inside the museum, but I've seen all the artifacts. I've been to the artifacts and things like that, on conventions and stuff like that. One of them came from people I know. It's one of the artifacts, which was a skull. It's a human skull that was actually used in some rituals. See, and I knew when it was being passed around from person to person. I remember that skull, and finally it wound up with Ed Warren. But it was
Carl didn't have that skull, did he? I know he was into that for a while.
Yes, he had that skull. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not the original one that had it, but it was given to him, and he had possession of it for quite a while. I don't know if I should use that word possession. That sounds kind of be a reflex. Yeah, right.
Yeah. He had it in his possession. That's the only way you can really say it without sounding
right.
like
Right. Exactly. And then it wound up with Ed Warren, but yeah, it was used in actual ceremonies, and so I don't know how tainted it is, but I haven't touched it for years myself, so I've never picked it up since Ed Warren's had it. So they do have the artifacts blessed periodically. They have them by clergy. A friend of mine actually just recently blessed the artifacts. Father Bob Bailey, I don't know if you recall him.
No, I do not.
He made some appearances on the TV show Paranormal State. And
I think I know what you're talking about now, because I literally just watched an episode last night, because I just put a season out on Amazon. Season 3 is on Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
Paranormal State, yep.
Yeah. My wife Sandra and I actually trained Father Bob Bailey in that, not trained him as a priest, of course. He was a graduate of seminary and had his own parish for many years, but they'd never, in seminary, they had never really heavily gone into that aspect of it, dealing with diabolical and casting demons out of places and people. So Father Bob contacted me and asked, could you and your wife Sandra take me out? I'd really, really appreciate it if you take me out to a few places and get me started in this. And I said, okay, well, we'll do that. And we'll do it very, very safely. We'll do it very, very safely. So we did. We took Father Bob on his first deliverance. Now, deliverance is somewhat similar to exorcism, but it's not a full ritual of exorcism. It's removing an attachment rather than something that's inside you. Although I have seen a deliverance session turn into pretty much an exorcism. If the spirit wants to fight, it will fight. So that's why you always have to be cautious, even if it's just a deliverance session. But he led a deliverance session for us, which was my first deliverance session, and a house blessing. And of course, he was very knowledgeable about blessing houses, but this was a house that was demonically tainted, so we took him to that. And it's the rest is history, so to speak. But everybody has to start somewhere, you see, and there's not always that many opportunities to do it and to do it safely with someone who has experience. But we were glad to help out. We've We've helped out clergy at various times, both Protestant and Catholic, and so that's basically what we do. We do a lot of we've done a lot of house blessings. That's mostly what Sandra and I do, house blessings. Now, as far as actual exorcism go, I tend to stay out of that. Although there have been times when you're there and it's necessary at the moment. Things are going out of control and it's necessary at the moment. But I do basically stick to the house blessing and deliverance sessions.
All right, I got this is a live show. We're on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook, and I like to get the fans, or people who watch, get their questions in too. So we got our first question.
Yes.
From Sean Painter. This may sound dumb, but what is the Devil Made Me Do It case?
Devil Made Me Do It case is a case that took place in Connecticut, and Ed and Lorraine Warren became involved. It involved a young boy who had a learning disability, and he was a very nice boy. His elder sister's boyfriend became very, very close, like an older brother to him, and was tired of seeing him getting picked on. Now, this boy did have a learning disability, and yet there were times he could speak perfect Latin. There were things he just knew, historical dates that he didn't really know afterwards, after he'd come out of his possession. A spirit was picking on him. And incredible, he could do poltergeist-like activity around him would happen. Things would levitate, people would be injured, sometimes hurt. He did come after his parents at one point. He was just a small boy at the time, but he would become uncontrollable. He would gain incredible strength. Now, his sister's boyfriend, Arnie Johnson, got tired of it one time because he was so close to the boy and very protective. So one time when the spirit was jabbing him and entering him, he got very mad and lost his temper, and he told the spirit, "Why don't you leave him alone and come into me? Pick on me for a change." And Ed Warren told him, "You shouldn't really say that. You should not say that. You should not say." But he was angry, and I would say justifiably so, seeing this boy that was like a little brother to him being picked on and tormented. But Ed warned him to be very, very careful, and nothing happened right then. But over the course of the next weeks, he started feeling very, very strange, like something was with him, something was accompanying him wherever he went. And then he started feeling like something was inside of him. He was not alone. Then his girlfriend, his fiancée, Deborah, was at her place of work. She worked for a pet groomer. Her boss got into an argument with the rest of them. I guess they've been drinking quite a bit. Some friends had, and a scuffle ensued, and suddenly the boss was stabbed. Now, it's very strange. Deborah said she saw a little scuffle, but she didn't see anybody stab anyone. Suddenly, her boss has a knife in his stomach, and he succumbed. He did pass away. Meanwhile, Arnie went out, just walked away, and the police picked him up. He didn't try to escape or resist arrest. They picked him up, and he was in a daze, and he said, "Where am I? How did I get here?" And so obviously there was a big hearing about that, and then a trial. Ed and Lorraine Warren did try to stick up for him. They did testify during his trial, and they wanted to get a legal precedent, not guilty by reason of demonic possession. Now, the judge didn't like that. He threw that right. He said, "No, we're not going to go with that or anything, and I don't want any more testimony about devils and demons." But he did get Arnie did get a very reduced sentence, and he did get some counseling as well. And he doesn't remember it to this day. He has no memory of that actual action. He and Deborah did wind up getting married, and they had a wonderful, happy marriage. And we were good friends, actually, Debbie and Arnie and I. And like I always told them, us Johnsons have to stick together. So, I've got the name Johnson, but yeah. And I have a show myself, a YouTube show called Ghosts Are Near. Sandra and I do. It's a talk show, a paranormal talk show. but we do things out in the field every other month. You know, we're in the studio, and then next month we'll be out in the field investigating something. And Debbie had agreed to be on a guest on our show. She said she had to wait till the movie The Devil Made Me Do It. She had to wait till that came out, The Conjuring 3. She had to wait till that came out legally. But she said, as soon as the movie's out, I'll be your guest. And unfortunately, she passed away just before she was going to be our guest.
That's too bad.
Yeah, that was too bad. And we didn't realize that she was sick at all, but she'd been battling cancer for a while. She herself was she was an RN. She was a registered nurse and helped many people, was a very, very generous person. And she and Arnie were a wonderful, wonderful couple. You know, Arnie's still living. We're still good friends, but we sure miss Deborah. And sorry I didn't get the chance to interview her, but life happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. Obviously, you and Carl were both huge. Speaking of the Conjuring House, huge, obviously influences to what has became this phenomenon. Is
yes, we were.
I guess I have Carl's account documented. Obviously, at the show, I've had Carl on. This will be his 4th time on the show.
Yes.
What was your account when you first came to that house and all that stuff? I just like to compare notes. And that was just it's like a situation like that. It's got to be wild, especially how young you guys were. You guys are both basically teenagers. You know what I mean?
Yes, we were teenagers. We were teenagers. We had met Ed and Lorraine Warren at one of their lectures at Rhode Island College, and of course, Ed asked anybody, is there anybody in the audience that happens to be involved in the occult? And my brother raised his hand. He said, "Oh, come down here, young man." And he became like part of Ed's lecture at the beginning. And he had done a lot of occult practices. And it's funny because my date for the night, the young lady I was with, she was into white witchcraft. And he asked, is anybody else into the occult practice or witchcraft at all? And she raised her hand. He called her down. And meanwhile, I'm kind of sinking under the seat because people are starting to stare at me because we're twins and everything. And and they started debating each other on stage. But then Ed took over and said, you're both playing with danger. You're both playing with fire. You have to be very, very careful with what you're doing, dealing with these spirits. They're beyond your control. But we did remain friends with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and Carl and I were still 18 years old, and we were in Pyro, which was based at Rhode Island College. We met some members, and they invited us to join them. Parapsychological Investigation and Research Organization, and we had no real way, because this is before the internet, no real way of getting the message out about us. So we weren't as famous as the Warrens, obviously. So I put a little ad in the paper, a local paper, like a penny saver. And 3 weeks later, Carolyn Perrin picked it up. And of course, she was living in a house built in 1736 that was very, very haunted. They were getting spirit activity. And she contacted us and asked us, would you please come to my farmhouse and investigate it? And we said we certainly were. We certainly would. We met with her first and got her story. It's interesting that as soon as they moved in, the day they moved in, Andrea, the eldest daughter, saw a gentleman leaning in a doorway, and another one of her sisters did too. They just thought he was some funny guy, a friend of the previous owner, who was dressed up in old-fashioned clothing, but he didn't speak to them at all. And after a while, he vanished. So it didn't take long before they realized they were dealing with spirit entities in there. Now, the mother wasn't, she didn't realize this right away, but soon she started having experience with spirits, but hers was a very negative experience. She was attacked a number of times. She was hit by a hard wooden coat hanger repeatedly on the head. She was hearing disembodied footsteps and being touched and hair pulled and everything. Started slicing an orange and blood started spurting out of it. She thought she cut herself, but she hadn't. So she was really feeling very unwelcome, and she was the one that was being targeted. Yes, the daughters, being young girls, were seeing these spirits, but she was actually being targeted in a negative way. and she was afraid for her family, so that's why she asked for our help. We came to the house that Saturday, and we explored the house. We were given a tour of the barn as well as the house. And Carl went downstairs. Our chairperson, Donna, she understandably did not want to go down those old stairs, that old staircase. Carl went down, and immediately the light bulb goes off on him, the only light bulb there. So he kind of figured his way back up the stairs. And he did see a shadow person while he was upstairs on the second floor. He was almost accosted by a shadow person coming right towards him. Myself, like, the girls took a liking to me because I had really long hippie-like hair, and so they thought
Just
I was cool.
Absolute stud.
Right? Yes. So they took a liking to me, and they were leading me all over the place. But they took me up to the bedroom where they all gathered together, Andrea's room, when they were most frightened. Now, Andrea was downstairs with my brother and Donna and her mother, but the younger girls were telling me how frightened they were and said, this is where we all gathered together when we're most frightened. And I could just feel the energy, and their negative energy was like pulsing out of me. I could just feel the energy being taken out. So, but I did tell them, I asked them, do you have religious beliefs? And they said, oh, yes, we're Catholic. And I said, well, it might help if you try calling upon Jesus. Now, right to my right, there was a window that was halfway open. They tried shutting it. It was August. Because of the humidity, it couldn't be closed. The old wood just swelled.
Yeah, warped up on you.
Right. And the father even tried hammering it shut, but it just wouldn't close. But as soon as I said the name of Jesus, that window came slamming right down with tremendous force, practically shook the room. And then they all screamed, and one of the daughters, Nancy, got hit, slapped, and you could see her head go back. She got hit on the left side of her head. Now that is an important indication, actually. I didn't know it at the time, but it was significant that she was hit in the left side, because the demonic tends to go counterclockwise. So it went in that direction. And she was screaming, they were all crying. Meanwhile, whatever was there, I could just feel it taking a bunch of energy out of me. I could feel it actually pulsating, and they were all finding it hard to breathe too. But I called upon the name of Jesus twice more. Now, I realized I'm only 18, but I'm the closest person to an adult in this room. So I called upon the name of Jesus twice more, and it left the room. You could just feel the air go back to normal. And they all looked up at once. They said, it's gone. It's gone. And they were thrilled, and it had left the room. So we all came downstairs together and told their mother Carolyn what had happened. Of course, that was a temporary solution, because by midweek, something came into Carolyn's room. It was just getting daylight. She felt something was wrong in the room. She tried pushing her husband, Roger, but he wouldn't wake up. He was like dead to the world. And she turned around, and there's something hovering at the foot of her bed. I don't know how to describe it, but Carolyn described it as basically the form of a woman, but it looked just like a rotting corpse. Looked like a rotting corpse, and with a long gray dress on and gray hair. Teeth were all yellow and rotted, and it was speaking strange verse. And all Carolyn at that time could remember was, I'll drive you mad with fiery brooms. I'll drive you mad with death and gloom. I'll drive you out, but 'twill be too late. You'll be dead. And then just smiled at her, and then vanished, and leaving a trace of sulfur and rotten meat, is how Carolyn described it. And Roger finally woke up. When he woke up, he found his back was gouged and bleeding. That's the only time Roger was ever attacked, but that was the one time he was attacked by it. So then Carolyn called us, and she called our chairperson, Donna, and told Donna exactly what had happened. Carolyn was obviously very shaken up, very understandably shaken up at what had happened. Donna said, listen, I'm going to call our friends Ed and Lorraine Warren and ask their advice. They've been doing this for years, and I'm going to call them right now. So as soon as Donna hung up, she called the Warrens and got Lorraine, told Lorraine what had just happened and what we're experiencing, and asked, do you have any advice for us, Lorraine? Because this is the first time we've been in something as intense as this. Lorraine said, well, honey, we'll do more than just advise you. We'll actually come down there and we'll work with you on this case personally. And that is how, contrary to what it showed in The Conjuring, that is actually how the Warrens got involved in the Conjuring case, what became known as the Conjuring case. We knew it as the Perrin case, but it became the Conjuring case.
That's wild. In your experience, did you see the movie?
Yes, I did.
So I seen is one of the Perrin daughters. They referenced the acting job from Patrick Wilson to be pretty spot on with how Ed was as a person, pretty uppity and very, he can be stern, but he's a very polite guy. Very very nice.
Yes.
And like I guess she also made a comment too how he how he do like when he do his presentations and how like for paranormal investigators, or some people even call us kooks, like how he kind of, just
yes.
Was he very much like that too? And when your encounters, like very,
I have to say that was the portrayal of Ed and Lorraine Warren as people, actual people, them doing that lecture to a college audience. That was pretty spot on. That was very much like Ed and Lorraine Warren really were. A lot of people don't realize this about Ed because you always see him being very intense and talking about demonic activity and stuff. He actually had a great sense of humor. I mean, if you got Ed Warren laughing, like they became friends with my parents. Carl and I invited them over, and they became good friends with my parents, and they had them over for dinner. And my dad and Ed just shared the same sense of humor, so it was a barrel of laughs and everything. And my mom, very much like Lorraine, they get along very, very well. And it was a very nice evening whenever we could have Ed and Lorraine over. But yeah, Ed he could be stern, he could be very firm, but he also had a great sense of humor. You wanted to start laughing at old movies or something, you just talk to Ed.
Yeah. Well, he was, it's being in the field he was. I mean, you almost have to have that stern side to you. You know what I mean? Dealing with, as you put it in the show Ghost Adventures, dealing with things that never walked on this planet. It's
right,
bizarre.
Right. Exactly. You have to be stern. You have to take control sometimes. And I'm usually not that forceful a person, but if I'm in that situation, sometimes you have to be. You have to work together too. It's very important on working together and being on the same page. I've been investigating with people that were not exactly on the same page as me as far as their religious beliefs, but usually when you're working to help a family out, you do work together pretty much to make sure the family is kept safe. And above all, you want to bring peace to that house and not fear. You want to rid the place of fear, because some people have been living with fear for months and even years with these things going on.
So with the presence of like a demonic entity in your home, is fear something that they feed off of per se, or just something that it doesn't matter what your emotion is, they're still going to attack you? Like you could try to stand up to it.
Yeah.
Do they welcome like I guess like do they welcome the fear, or do they welcome more like the challenge of like, okay, now they're starting to stand up to me, and now I'm going to show them what business is. You know what I mean?
Yes. Actually, that's a very good question, Louis.
I guess I can't say it because I'm stuffed up, but being proactive, I guess, against the force. Or
yes. Yeah.
Provocation. I think that's what I want to say.
Right. And a lot of people do use provocation. They do primarily seem to feed off fear. They like to terrorize. They feed off the energy of fear. They seem to be empowered by that. The more they can generate fear, the more they will do so. Now, as far as challenging them, sometimes they will like that. Sometimes they won't. It depends who does it and how they do it. That can be a very, very dangerous thing because obviously there could be a very serious backlash from that. That's why I try to warn groups, especially the younger groups who are just getting into this. Please don't provoke just to get a response. Don't say you coward. Let's see what you got, because sometimes it will show you. And what really bothers me is when people they start insulting the spirit, calling it names just to try to get a reaction. And I try to explain that if you're dealing with something that's human or akin to a human entity, you don't want to be, hurting somebody and trashing them. You don't know their life story. You don't know what they've been through, and that's very cruel, I think, to do that to somebody who is not even of your realm, your physical realm. And if it is a demonic spirit, something that's not human, if they could see what they were talking to, they would never do it again.
Yeah.
Just one glimpse of what they were talking to, I don't think they'd dare to do it again. So we try to be very cautious and protective. We do certain prayers before entering the house, and of course, when leaving the house, that nothing will follow us. One thing I like to do is I like to recite from Ephesians chapter 6, either silently or out loud, mostly out loud. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 18. St. Paul is writing about the armor of God, and he's actually depicting the armor piece by piece of a Roman soldier and comparing it to the armor of God. The breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation, and your feet fitted, shod with the readiness that comes from God, and so on and so on. It's like painting a picture of it. It's been my experience, at least I believe, that when you do recite this and you recite it with faith, I think demonic entities actually do see that armor, or they at least see that you have a protective layer, because it has proven to be very, very useful. They do see a protective layer once you prayed that in faith. And it's not my own holiness, believe me. It's like if I went by my own holiness, I'd just be lost. I think of how unholy I am and how I fall and just sometimes lose my temper and everything, and I'm always so ashamed afterwards. But I know that at least God's protecting, and God doesn't falter. God doesn't falter. And it's interesting when you say also covered with the shed blood of Jesus Christ. That is very, very protective. I wasn't there for this case, but I heard of a group that came into a place and they had a psychic there, and she looked at one of the investigators, one of the team there that was there to pray, and she saw this man, and she was shocked. She said, "I'm sorry, but I see you just covered. You're just covered with head to toe with blood." That's what I'm seeing. The psychic saw this gentleman that way. Well, unbeknownst to the psychic, that gentleman, it was revealed later, had recently accepted Christ and called upon the shed blood of Jesus Christ. But the psychic had no way of knowing that this man was newly baptized in Christ and had called upon the shed blood of Jesus. So she actually saw him covered in blood.
That's actually bizarre.
Yeah, that was very bizarre. Very very rare instance. But yeah, that was truly bizarre.
I used to be really skeptical of mediums, just because it's just kind of like, I don't know. To me, it just seemed kind of bizarre.
Yes.
And then I was listening to Jack Osborne and Christina Weidman from. She was on.
She was on Paranormal State.
Yeah, Paranormal State with Ryan Brule. Yep, and Chip Coffey and all those other great minds.
Yeah. Some other shows.
And they went to Bobby Mackey's Music World in Wilder, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And she got a call from, I can't remember who the medium there was. It wasn't Chip, it was somebody else, but she called and she's like, "Are you okay?" And Katrina was like, "I'm fine. Why?" She goes, "I just had a vision you got hurt." And I think it was the next day she broke her ankle.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
And then I think it was literally the same exact day she also called Jack, and she was like, "Jack, are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same day that she broke her ankle that Jack's youngest daughter went to the hospital for something minor, but she was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
That to me, that's crazy. This it was maybe a month after the investigation, she still had that vision of something happening to them, and to me, that kind of blew my mind. I was like, well, if there's anybody in the paranormal field who's very open and their opinions, it's Jack Osborne. I mean, he's Ozzy's son. He's going to say whatever he wants.
Right.
what are you gonna do? Falter his, his ego? I mean, come on. But like, Jack, he's done a great job for me to like learn. Just he's so thorough in his thought processes. He lays it all out there, and to me, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and then with Katrina too, because she's awesome too. She's a very well-rounded investigator. She's doing her own stuff on YouTube that I try to follow once in a while. And
yeah, she's a great gal. Katrina is. You should have her interview her if you get a chance. She's a great gal.
Oh, I would love to have her on the show. It just all of her experiences, like growing up a paranormal state. Like she literally grew up the same way you guys did, but she was on the camera.
Right. Yeah,
and I guess you guys did too. I mean, Ghost Hunters took off with you and Carl and Jason and Grant and Brian Herano, and I think Steve came on later on season 1, and then Debbie, was she part of that too? Then
I think she was later on. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you guys all grew up in that golden era. I guess we call it golden era paranormal television, where everything that we read in books or heard from other people, like it came to life on the screen for us. It was just like, holy cow, this is it. Like I told you behind the camera, like I grew up watching Ghost Hunters religiously, and like maybe it wasn't the seasons you guys were on, but like St. Augustine, that was wild. St. Augustine. My parents went on vacation to Florida, and they're going to be close to St. Augustine. All I asked for was literally a picture of the lighthouse. That's all. That'd be amazing. My mom went to the lighthouse, took a picture. But like that, the stories there of all the stuff that happened at that place. And it just, I guess to me, like paranormal investigating is more of the stories that intrigue me more than it is the activity, and that's why like even like now like Jason Hawes. He does the YouTube now too, and it's just like he's so thorough and he's so honest, and maybe it's the plumber in him that like he's so right. It's just like lay it all out there. This is screwed up, or but he's not going to bullshit you, and he's going to be very straightforward. Even like in his podcast he does on YouTube, like he's like it absolutely disgusts him. You can see it in his face too, and he says it disgusts him when he sees all these other groups tagging just for clicks. This house, this house has 10 demons in it, and we've seen them. I'm just like,
right, exactly.
It's just like, man, because like I'm not going to out the group by any means, but like, there's one for sure that's on YouTube. Is every single case we met a demon in the so and so house. It's like, well, how do you know?
Yeah, right.
Like I can like maybe like if there's any house I could think of on top of my head right now that hasn't had all the crews, all the people through it, like maybe the Harrisburg house in New York, that's been kind of like off limits, kind of like the Harrisburg house. If people don't know what the Harrisburg house is, you look into that or like watch investigations. That is a creepy place. Like there were two, I believe the first 2 residents of that home, they were both serial killers. They're brothers, and they both would take people's lives.
Oh yeah.
Dismantle the vehicles, bury them, and then bury the bodies basically next to them. And there's no way to know back then how many people how many lives they took. Yeah, but it was quite a few. And then there's also, I think that was like one of the first wars to Native Americans on that land. Yeah, and all the things. So there's obviously it's not every place, it's not every location, but like if there's any place, obviously the Round Top Hill. And then Harrisburg, Amityville, but it's just like, are they still there? Not with all the publicity and traffic and investigating. You know what I mean? Like I don't think any demon would want to be always on camera and stuff. Right. They're like a spider. They're going to trap you and turn their web. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. They won't perform when you necessarily want to. I remember we were doing a Paranormal State. Sandra and I had done the schoolhouse episode with Shannon and Sylvia. And I did the blessing of the house, and I asked for a sign of departure. The last thing I asked was a sign of departure. Nothing happened, but we're hoping it was successful. As soon as they turned the cameras off, one of the kitchen cupboards goes, bam, slams right open. See? So I got the sign of departure, just not on camera. Yeah, wild. It's not going to do it when you command it. Exactly. It will respond, but not necessarily when you say so. So
You know,
How many cases would you say is actually demonic?
I would say there's, well, I would say maybe about out of 20, you might get one. Out of 20, 25, you might get one. But also, I also think the demonic is lurking in the background. Doesn't necessarily have to be, demonic, but whenever there's a portal open, there's always that chance that something's watching. It's just waiting and watching for the right opportunity to do something to make it so. That's why using the Ouija board and seances, they could be very, very dangerous, because all it takes is that once for something to come in through a portal, if there has been a spirit there, or maybe somebody passed away in that house that had a demonic attachment, and then it's giving it permission. It's almost like summoning it. So that can be very, very dangerous. That's why I always promote caution. Caution is be very, very cautious. And it's funny because Sandra and I worked with Steve Gonzalez quite a bit. We worked with Steve Gonzalez quite a bit before the TV show as well, because he was part of what we used to call the Taps family, and still is the Taps family. But before Steve became a full member of Taps, and sometimes other members would be on a different case or investigation. But Sandra and I would often go with Steve. Jason would send us to go with Steve to help some of his cases that might have been demonic. So we worked with Steve quite a bit. And it's interesting, when the show was first starting, it hadn't aired yet, but we actually did. A lot of people, I'm sure, don't remember this, but the first season of Ghost Hunters, we worked on a demonic case, and it was advertised it was going to be on a case of demonic possession. I guess at the last minute, they thought that was a little too controversial, so they pulled the show. But there was actually a case filmed working with a case of demonic possession, and Steve was there with us. And it's interesting that one of the family members was kind of having a panic attack, and he was really, really starting to freak out. So Steve used actually his, because Steve used to be a police officer.
I did not know that.
Yeah. He was a police officer in Massachusetts while he started investigating. And of course, later, he left. But he actually used some of his police negotiation tactics to try to calm this family member down, because the guy was really, really freaking out. So he used some of his negotiation, because Steve is very soft spoken and everything.
Very, yeah. I was gonna say that actually fits his character to a T.
Yeah,
that he's a cop. That makes so much sense.
Yes, it does. So he did actually use some of his negotiation tactics. Talked with the guy reasonably and let him know there was no threat. So fortunately, that something that could have been a very much more dangerous situation was avoided. And we did all work together on that case. So I don't know if it'll ever be aired, if you'll ever see it, if the footage still exists. But Sandra and I have done excerpts of it from our own case, things we filmed from our own investigation there. But that was actually going to be an episode for the first season of known as the Lost Possession episode. So that's what people began calling it, the Lost Possession episode.
We should start protesting old Jason for that film. Get that out.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe someday it'll get enough attention that people will write in and they actually show it.
Yeah, you guys were the original Ghost Adventures for they were doing that stuff. That's wild.
Yeah.
And you met those guys too. What was your encounter like with Zach Baggins and Aaron Goodwin and the other boys? Well,
we got along with them very well. Very, very well. We get along with them very well. They were so glad to meet us. The first investigators of the Conjuring House, they were very anxious to meet us, and we had a good experience. At least I did. My brother got to be good friends with Zach Baggins too, and I had a very good experience with them. That night we were there though with Zach Baggins and Aaron and the crew. It's just amazing. You couldn't have asked for better special effects. This thunderstorm moved in, violent thunderstorm, and it's like constant flashing lightning and torrential rains, and you couldn't put better special effects in it, but it was all natural. freak storm just kind of moved in for the duration of while we were there. Yeah. Unfortunately, a couple of our investigators were outside at the time, and they got pretty much drenched. They opened a hatch of a vehicle, and they were leaning out. They still got drenched. And one of them, my friend Dave, he fell into he's a member of our group. He went right into a puddle and everything. So he got baptized.
Yeah.
Yep. Interesting though, because they did catch what seemed to be that shadow figure that my brother first experienced. They seem to have caught it on film that night.
Yeah, that was one of the cooler episodes I've ever seen of them. I mean, they do a lot of cool stuff. Like I said, I grew up watching all that stuff, man. I could pinpoint every single investigation. I was like, yeah, I'd love to get into this more. So my one haunted place I went to, and it was actually based on ghost hunters who went there first, but everybody else has gone there. That'd be the Waverly Hills Sanitarium.
Oh,
I did a tour there, and I was just like, man, it's so. I didn't have any experiences there. I caught on my phone because I tried to tail in the back, just to like take pictures of like the darkness and stuff, just see if I could catch something.
Yeah,
and I caught an orb on my live, like your iPhone, you take the live picture, and I caught an orb go, it went like across. Then I went down, then it came back up, and it went across again. Almost like watching House, like the lifeline thing.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. And I sent it to the Waverly Hills people, and they're like, "Oh, that's how many pictures did you take?" I said, "I took 3 like this," and I sent them all 3. And like, well, that's pretty cool that you caught it on one. Just so I'm not sure if they archive it or whatever, but like, they definitely have that now because they, if you catch anything, please, they want to. Before it surfaces to everybody, they want to have it first. So
right, exactly.
Which I thought that was pretty cool. That building is massive. It just
it is. I have some footage. Sandra and I used to show during our lectures, and it's not footage. I wish it was footage we took. It wasn't footage we took. Is a friend of ours from Spooky South Coast, actually, the science advisor, Matt Moniz, good friend of ours for many, many years. He has this footage where he's on the 2nd floor, and at the end of the hallway, there's just, a dead end hallway.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you see somebody, while he's talking, you see a figure just look like this, just peek out like that, and then go back, just peek out like that. But there's no access there for it to come from. And that figure, and it was moving, look at them, that would have had to be at least 8 to 10 feet tall if that was a human figure. That would have had to been at least 8 to 10 feet tall. And Matt didn't see it. He was talking and he turned around, but he didn't see it until he looked at the footage. So that was very, very creepy. That place definitely has a lot of things behind the walls. And
have you been there?
I have never been there, but I hope to go soon.
I just did the tour. I didn't do any investigating there. I just did the tour, and the tour just. It's just like it's beautifully creepy.
Yes,
if that's the way that's the right way to put it. It's just like it's a lot, but like the accounts that the obviously like the people who give the tours are there all the time.
Yes,
just the accounts that they'll give you, like the Louisville Police Department will go there and do like whatever like SWAT team training.
Yes.
And like the guy the one guy who took the other group was telling us the story, like, the SWAT team, he's a big guy, he's buff, and they're, walking through us to show him like all the different points, the staircases, where the elevator is.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 ways up, the staircase and then the elevator. There's only 2 ways to get up and down that building.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was just basically one-on-one, him and the other guy, and the guy was like, quit messing with me. I know you guys do your spooky stuff here, but don't mess with me.
Yeah.
And what was happening was something was pulling on his shirt like nonstop.
Yeah.
Like, the entire way up and down. I think they were on the 5th floor where the kids are, so it makes sense. The kids' ward's on the 5th floor, and it was following down, and then. He like blew up on the guy giving them the tour. He's like, just I know you guys are messing around. Just please stop. And the guy's like, dude, I am ahead of you the whole time. I am not behind you. I'm literally like you're following me. You know the way around the building.
Uh-huh.
And the last time it happened was on, I think, on the second floor before he went downstairs, and he heard running.
Uh-huh.
Away after the last time he got his shirt pulled, he heard the running away, and he turned around. He thought he'd seen a shadow person going darting down the hallway.
Oh yeah,
like how Grant would explain it, like just right down the hallway.
Right.
So yeah, I guess he didn't really say much after that because they basically, when they're doing that SWAT training, it's just them in the building.
Yeah.
But I assume that like all that ruckus, all that noise, all their equipment, that's got to be giving off some sort of, energy, all that stuff. And I would assume they maybe seen something there, but who knows? That is just one of the coolest places. Like that is probably my Mount Rushmore favorite place I've ever been. It's so cool. That's up there at Yellowstone. You know what I mean? That's so cool there.
Right. Yeah. So when are you coming to Rhode Island for a visit?
I want to go out there. So my cousin is currently in Georgia. He's getting relocated to in between Pennsylvania and Baltimore soon. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get out that way soon. I want to go up to Rhode Island, and I'd like to meet you and Carl. It'd be awesome.
Oh,
I've followed your guys' careers forever. I really do think you guys are probably the two most well-spoken people in the paranormal field, period.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like to get up that way soon. I definitely, I like to get up by Maine, all that stuff too. But Rhode Island would be a cool place to visit, especially like Warwick, and obviously seeing the Conjuring House. Obviously, there's stuff going on with Conjuring House. Who knows how long that's going to be open? But
right.
Yeah, I'd love to get up that way just to even see the house. It'd be cool. That'd be enough. Just take a picture of it.
Yeah. We've got
so much to do out there. So much history out that way, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. All of New England. But I like to think especially Rhode Island. We have our vampire cases here too in Rhode Island.
Vampires.
Yes, yeah, vampire cases, vampire lore. Yes, certainly, and it was concentrated in Rhode Island, all throughout New England, in the 18th and 19th century, right up until the late 19th century. But especially in Rhode Island, we had vampire cases. The most famous is Lena Brown, Mercy Lena Brown. Now, what they would do, and this happened as recently as 1892, when a family members were dying of tuberculosis, which was rampant, of course, in the 19th century. One after another, family members would be dying, and they had no explanation from medical science, so they turned to folklore. And what they would do is sometimes they'd have a whole ritual, or almost like a church party sometimes. They'd go out to the backyard or the local cemetery, start digging up recently deceased family members. If someone wasn't incorruptible, had not decayed properly, then that's a good chance that was the demonic spirit where they were vampirizing the other members of the family. And families actually would have nightmares that their relatives are coming into the room and sitting on their chest and everything. And so what they would do is take the body that was the most well-preserved, usually cut out the heart, burn it on a nearby rock. Now, in 1892, in the case of Lena Brown and her family, Mercy Lena Brown, the local physician who was paid to do it, that's the only reason he did it. She'd been dead 2 months. They took her out of the tomb. It was an above ground tomb because she died in January 17th, 1892. They took her out March 17th, 1892, and her body was almost perfectly preserved. Now, it didn't seem to occur to them that, except to the doctor, that she's so well preserved because she was buried above ground in the 2 coldest months of the year. But the townspeople, the church members, figured that they'd found their vampire. Her heart and liver were cut out, burned on a nearby rock, and the ashes fed to her brother, who was ailing. Unfortunately, it didn't work. He died less than 2 months later, but they figured they had the right idea. So that really made history, and that actually is what put a stop to it. The fact that it reached the local papers and then the Providence Journal, and eventually the story worked its way over to Bram Stoker, who got the story from a New York paper, and of course Bram Stoker being the author of Dracula. How much influenced he was by that story, we're not sure, but that's proof that he was actually investigating Rhode Island case histories of so-called vampirism. And you can see the grace.
He kicked off this awesome revelation of vampirialism
Oh
TV.
yes, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the show What We Do in the Shadows.
We love that show.
Yes, and that's
yeah.
my favorite. Me and my girlfriend's favorite show is definitely What We Do in the Shadows. That is just like one of those shows where I can just watch and whatever so I could turn on episode 1, season 1, and watch it all the way through, and I didn't bat an eye.
But
so the guy who plays Colin Robinson is actually from a town 20 minutes from me.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah. He used to do hits. He used to do like joking hits on the newscast all the time. He has a really, I don't know if you like pay attention when he talks, but he has a very thick Midwest accent.
Right.
And they pick on it too in the show. They do like, I went to Wisconsin. They talk like, just like, it's hilarious. I love it. That's how they like kind of pick on each other. And like, I think Matt Berry is one of the best. He plays Laszlo. I think he's got to be the best actor in the world right now. He can make me laugh at any moment. He's so funny.
He's a talented musician too, isn't he?
Yes, Matt Berry is a very talented musician. I got my brother hooked on the show, but it's called Darth Marhardy's Dark Place.
Yeah.
It was pre What We Do in the Shadows. It was pre before he was even popular. But like it is just one. If you like corny TV, that is one of the funniest pieces of TV you can watch. It's on Amazon. I'll send you the link. It's hilarious. Please. It's like it takes place in a hospital. It's like a dark soap opera, but like with a lot of like paranormal weird stuff going on. It's great. Right. It's hilarious.
I love it. What We Do in the Shadows. I love when they celebrated Super Bowl Sunday. We're looking for the superb owl. The superb owl. Yeah. Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, I mean, my coworker joke a lot about that show. I got him cooked on that show. We love it. It's one of the best. Oh my god, it's just.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I guess this next season is the last season, so we gotta.
Oh yeah, I'll be sorry to see that go.
Yeah, Tiki Watifi. He's the director. He's a magician. He's so good. He did like. You ever seen Jojo Rabbit?
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah,
that's really you should. Yeah, if you like good movies, Jojo Rabbit's really good. He did that movie. He even played Adolf Hitler in that movie.
Oh, really?
As a joke to the Nazi party because he's a Jewish descent.
Yeah,
he played Adolf Hitler in his own movie just to do it. It's just hilarious. And he has a new. It's based off an old TV show back in the day, but Time Bandits.
Oh yes, yeah.
He just did a new spin on that too. It's on Apple TV. It's fantastic. I've been really I love that show. It's really good. It's more of a kids show, but it's light humor. Tiki Watifi's in it, and then there's bunch of good actors in it too. Actually, the movie What We Do in the Shadows, the main character, he plays the devil. So.
Oh yes, really. Well, Sandra loved that Time Bandits, the original. That was her favorite movie of all time. Time Bandits, the original. That was a great one there.
So is there like any places as an investigator yourself? Is there any places that you want to go in particular?
I'd love to go to Amityville. I don't know if I would experience anything there or how much I would experience, but I'd love to. I'd love to go to the Carpathians sometime. The original home of Dracula, Vlad Tepes the Impaler. I'd love to investigate there, or at least just go there to visit. And I think any visit would be an investigation there. And, I'd love to go to the Shanley Hotel, of course. Estes, Colorado, of course. That's where they say the Estes method comes from, being done in the Shanley Hotel in Estes, Colorado. Don't tell anyone, but we were doing that in Rhode Island before it was at the Estes Hotel.
I won't tell anybody.
Okay.
I promise.
Right. That's why it's known as the Estes method, though. But I'd like to go to the Shanley Hotel. There's a lot of places, of course, across the country I'd love to go, and places that aren't that famous too. I have some dear friends in Kentucky that they've been tormented by spirits for years, and I want to get over there so bad. They've been really, and again, just when they think it's over, it starts up again. They've been doing this for quite a while, going through it for quite a while, and that's interesting because the husband is a pastor. He's a pastor, and the wife is a very, very sincere Christian, and unfortunately, they went to help from church authorities, they wound up having to move away because the ridicule they experienced. Some people thank them. Some people thank them for being so honest about it. And some people, I've experienced things too. Now I can talk about it too. But they did also receive a lot of derision. Unfortunately, they wound up having to move out. They're very, very sincere, wonderful, wonderful people, and they kept it to themselves for many years. But now they say, what's the difference if we talk about it? It's not going to make any difference at this point. And there's a case we've been working on for the past couple of years in Massachusetts, and the family has a daughter who's a teenager. She's 17 now, and she's special needs, and she deals with epilepsy. She's special needs, but she has kind of like a passport into the next dimension. You know what I mean? Like the spirit world. She can perceive certain spirits, and they're not all evil spirits. She can perceive angels as well. Angels, and she's always talking about deceased relatives she just met. And some of them, like one of them, she didn't know that he had died of cancer years ago. She had never met him, or at least not met him, seen him since way before he was sick. But she's saying, why is he bald? I don't understand why he's bald. And she didn't know he had gone through chemotherapy and such. But she kept asking, why is he bald? She didn't know he'd lost his hair from cancer treatments. And she sees a number of spirits, and we've been working with her for a couple of years now. And that's another case that was introduced to me from a friend, Matt Moniz. And interestingly, we're working with her and how she can protect herself. And she's learning more and more to protect herself through prayer. And as she's getting more protection, now it's kind of targeting her mother. It's kind of going from her to her mother now. And her mother's experiencing things and becoming very, very frightened at these things. So that's why we kind of keep in touch with them by phone at least 1 or 2 times a week. Make sure everything's all right and they're not in any real danger, hopefully. But these things do happen.
Yeah.
I'm also working with on this case. Invited NESPER in New England Society for Psychic Research, which of course is the Warrens group. And now of course Tony Spera and Dan Rivera run that group now, but it was originally founded in 1952 by Ed and Lorraine Warren. I think that was about the only group of its kind in this country. New England Society for Psychic Research, founded in 1952. I mean, back then, groups like that just didn't exist around here. So,
you guys, like I said, you guys are in like the oldest part of the country.
Yes,
or I guess like the oldest developed part of the country. I guess you could say. Like you guys are right in the footsteps of where everybody came over.
Yes, yeah, and some history about the Conjuring House again, long before it was the Conjuring House, when it was first built. The original owner, Dexter Richardson, he actually married into the Nipmuc tribe. His wife was a squaw from the Nipmuc tribe, and I don't know if that affected the situation at all. I think whatever is there has been there in the grounds for many, many years, long before the house was built. But the Nipmuc tribe was probably familiar with goings on in the area. But the original owner of the Conjuring House was Dexter Richardson. His wife was named Mary, and she was a squaw from the Nipmuc tribe. We don't know what her real name was, but she had to take on a Christian name to get married to him. So we don't know. Her real name is lost to history, just like Pocahontas, which was her nickname. When she came to England, she had to become Princess Rebecca. But respected as royalty, and I wish she was always treated like that, but unfortunately she wasn't. But that's some interesting history of how the societies and the populations became so integrated. Of course, aside from killing each other and fighting, there was also a lot of integration that took place as well.
Yeah, there's speaking of like the killing, but like. There's a quote in the game Fallout. It's not about who's right; it's about who's left. I feel like that's the case for a lot of wars back then.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a couple places I like to check out. There's a asylum, or a former asylum up in Sheboygan County Asylum, that they do tours and stuff. Now I'd love to check that place out.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then there's another place too. It's kind of a hidden gem, but they call it the Waverly Hills of the Midwest. It's up in northern Minnesota,
Oh,
and they had a lot of deaths in that place. And they were doing tours for a while, but they got shut down because they needed to have proper fire protection. So that's one thing I noticed. I mean, as a plumber, when you go through Waverly Hills, all the fire sprinklers are new because they had to do it, and B, you can't really integrate new pipe into an old ass ran down building. So it's one thing you will notice if you ever go there, like all the new fire sprinklers and everywhere.
Yeah,
beautiful work there too. They're like, I guess, like, I'm not sure if Jason was this way when you worked with him hand in hand, but like when you get into like an old building and you see like the old radiators that are like built into the building and like so like in Waverly Hills, like they have like their support beams, and then they build the radiators around that support beam. It's just like so cool. Like you don't ever, it's a lost thing of history now because everything now is forced air. Like
right.
Just hidden gems like that. It's so cool to me.
We worked with TAPS. We worked on a house in Brooklyn, and it was really, it had Romex cabling in the basement and everything like that. And they were losing their power every once in a while for some reason, but yeah, they have really, really old cabling, and that place was really, really infested. And we did get a number of very, very intelligent EVP there responses on recordings, very, very intelligent, and we know it didn't like us there. But my brother and Grant were going upstairs. They're on their way up the stairs. You hear their footsteps going. And then a voice says, "This is my house. Just walk slow." And it really, I guess it was very annoyed by them when it walked up the stairs. And somebody had smudged the place too, and the spirit didn't like that. You could hear it trying to blow out the smoke. Hot. It's saying hot. And very, very, very intelligent. And, yeah.
I guess, like, are you still in contact with Jason and Grant?
Yes. Grant, not so much. We saw him. My brother talked to him a few years ago. In fact, right after his mother passed, my brother gave his condolences and everything. Haven't talked to Grant in a while, but Jason, yeah, we keep in touch with him.
Yeah. I know he's doing his own YouTube thing now. I know we stated that earlier. Does he reach out to anybody, from the past to come hang out with him and do investigations on his YouTube channel?
Once in a while, he'll reach out to some old people, older people that have been, from not that we're that old, but some of us are. But yeah, he'll reach out to some people, and they'll reach out to him, and they'll get together and everything like that. It's mostly for like social occasions, though. Mostly like social occasions and interviews and things like that. Once in a while, there'll be an investigation that they'll get involved in, but usually it's the next generations that's doing that. His family and the next generation with his family and everything. So his daughter Satori, good
Have
friend.
you seen them do their? I know they do like they hold hands and they have like the paranormal activity. Have you witnessed that firsthand? And like, what's that like being around that?
Yes, I actually documented an experience they had in the Payne House Museum in Coventry, Rhode Island.
I actually just watched an investigation with Jason there.
Oh, did you?
Yep, yeah. That Payne guy is like he's a big radio guy.
Yeah.
Yep. Same guy then. Yep. Yeah. It's such a cool house. I got just another one. I will literally watch investigations just to see buildings. Like I love that. Like to see I don't know. I'm a weirdo, but like I can see the buildings and like appreciate these old and the Payne House, for example. Like that's a mansion. That was the hot spot. People who built that, they're geniuses, and that is such a cool place. But,
yeah. Well, when Cody and Scott doing that communication, it's strange because sometimes if you touch the floor, you can actually feel the knocking. You can hear it, but you can also feel a percussion. It's percussive against your finger. If you touch the right place at the right time, you'll actually feel it. And so yeah, communication sessions, they do go on for some time. So you actually have to take a break because you're so tired, and then they rest up and have some conversations, and then go back into it. But there always seems somebody anxious to talk. You know, they'll be like, you hear this knocking as soon as they start.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one at a time. Okay, who was first? Who was first? Like almost like who was first in line. You know.
Yeah, I seen their investigation with they were Destination Fear, now they're Project Fear. It'd be Dakota Layden and Tanner Wiseman and all those guys.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, they did the Conjuring House with them, and it was just this is how you just described it. It was just like just the constant tapping, and it wasn't even like entities from that house. It was people they knew. So in a case like Dakota, it was like Dakota's grandpa that came through, and it said basically have a cigar for me.
Have a cigar, and he was he had quite a crying spell there when he realized that it was somebody close to him. He mentioned the cigar and everything like that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that episode. I watched that. Yeah.
So the Paracon in Gettysburg, is that the same one they just had too at what the hell was that? One of the asylums out there, they had a big gathering out there too.
Oh yeah. This is very similar to that. This is the actual Warren's Con.
Warren's Con.
Yeah, this is actually the Warren's Con, and it's Gettysburg. It's September 27th, 28th, 29th. Well, 27th is actually the VIP party at night, and of course, that's.
Of course, you and Carl are there.
Oh yeah,
hanging out, drinking your bourbon, hanging out.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Yes. So that's, if you want any information on it, you can go to their site, the Warren's Con, or just go to the Ed and Lorraine Warren's site online, and or search for Tony Spera, you and Dan Rivera. You'll find it. It's very easy to find.
Yeah, I just, that's one of the things I'd love to see the Annabelle down with my own eyes. I think that's definitely one of the things I'd love to do paranormal wise. See Annabelle. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to make eye contact. If I just make a glance, it's all I need. The Shadow Doll's the same way.
Yeah,
it's just the history tied up with those two items, just so cool. And like John Zaffis too, like we stated before, he made haunted objects so cool to me. Like it's just every little thing. Like even I guess Zach Bagans too, to a degree, with the the Dybbuk box. I know that's kind of a farce with some paranormal fields. I know Carl doesn't believe in Dybbuk boxes at all. He's like he said the next time you come on the show, he'll bring his own Dybbuk box. He's like, "Well, open it." Right, so it's like just Zach Bagans too. He had that Dybbuk box, and I guess it actually had effects on the people that night, or even like post that night. Post Malone, who was a famous musician. I'm not sure if he actually got help, but like after they opened that, he actually had to get some sort of spiritual guidance after that, because I guess it really affected him. So maybe at some level, maybe those things are real. There's so much, I guess, tossed out entertainment with some paranormal stuff that I've noticed too. Like every noise is demonic and stuff like that. But
right,
I guess it's pet peeve, because if you're an asshole in life, you're going to be an asshole in death too.
Yeah,
that's something that people got to realize. And Jason Bertman, like I said, Wisconsin Paranormal, he really pointed that out to me. A lot of the case, because he was also a police officer, just like Steve. Actually, makes when he said that Steve Gonzalez was also a police officer, like those two are so much alike. That makes so much sense, because how they approach their investigations. Like, well, Jason, he's so well spoken. He's a guy I definitely like. If we were ever do an investigation, I would totally have him invite you guys to come out and just be part, because he's a wealth of knowledge. He's really just the police side of it too. I guess like I said, just like Steve, he's just so even keeled all the time. Yeah. He's not bullshitting you. He's just right to business all the time. He's just a great guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He told me one of the most active cases he ever had was at a strip club.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a functioning strip club. They shut the doors down for them to investigate, and he said he's never had so much activity. He's like it was almost like the basement came alive.
Wow.
And they would reference to girls, and they would just get all, uppity and pumped up for them, just like, man, just crazy. And then they brought two of the performers who worked there. They brought them into the investigation. They just go freaking. He's just like we get like EVPs. It's like, like dudes. It's like I was like, just going wild, just crazy.
Wow.
So I guess like if you are a partier in life, you're also gonna be a partier in death. So you're gonna get that too. You know what I mean? So I guess like the paranormal side of things like that, asshole and death, asshole, and life and death. You're gonna get that too. I guess is that something that maybe people get mixed up as demonic too? Like,
well, they can like attracts like, and sometimes if somebody was very not too nice or very cruel, that will attract the demonic as well. We worked in another case long before Ghost Hunters. We were working on in Skowhegan, Maine, where we found evidence of animal abuse. It was an old farmhouse, and this family was renting it. They were very, very frightened of the activity that was going on. They called in a priest, and the priest very quickly did a blessing. He wouldn't even go upstairs. He just stayed in one room, sprayed the holy water, and then get out. They kept trying to call him back, and he was like, "You see too many horror movies." And the father got mad, and he swore at the priest and everything. But yeah, that was a very active place, and we did find evidence of not just cult activity, but animal abuse as well. So that will attract demonic spirits as well. Anything like that, cruelty to animals, things like that, very bad and things. But very, very interesting capture there. We were there. It's about 2:30 in the morning. We were snowed in there anyway, so we weren't going anyplace. Skowhegan, Maine, in January. But
where is that? Is that northern Maine?
Yeah, that is northern Maine.
They get pounded up there themselves.
Oh yeah. They really, really do, and they did that night too. But it was about 2:30 in the morning, and suddenly we heard a bang from upstairs, and supposedly nobody's upstairs. We had a door slam. So some of us came running up and looked around, didn't see anything, and came back up. But one of our investigators, our investigator Rich, had his camera going, had his old camcorder going. And so the next afternoon, we went to, anybody get the time? And I said, yes, 2:30. So we sped up till 2:30, and we heard the door slam. Strangely, it was like a wooden door slamming, but on the recording, it sounded more like a locker, a metal locker from a gym. But we heard the door slam, and then you hear Jason and a couple other guys, their footsteps coming upstairs. And then you hear this little girl's voice say, "They're coming." And that's followed by a man's voice saying, "They're here." And then that was eerie. That was eerie. You see Jason and the others walking around. They don't see anything. They go back downstairs, and they hear something like a drumstick ticking, and a bunch of orbs shooting around, and a drumstick ticking. So that was a very, very active place. And that I led a house blessing from top to bottom of the house and the outside of the grounds too. And we found, Brian and I were out there and doing the blessing outside late afternoon, and we found freeze-dried chickens standing upright in the snow that had frozen that way. And the family didn't own them; they just from a past generation, but they were just freeze-dried as they were standing there. And so we did an entire blessing upstairs and downstairs, and potentially very, very dangerous case, very active, but it was successful. The blessing was successful, fortunately.
I got another question from a watcher.
Yes.
Have you guys ever seen Sam and Kobe on YouTube? Paranormal investigators. They have a couple stays at the Conjuring House and had rather unique communication sessions. Something I've never seen from big-time investigators, I guess. Worth a watch. Sorry to interrupt. It just does. Why? This does not interrupt. Thank you very much for commenting. That is my brother. He just had a child a couple months ago. And
oh, congratulations.
I have an uncle. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations to you. Congratulations to you. Well, speaking of Sam and Colby, I did see some of that, what they did at the Conjuring House. Also, they were recently invited to NASPR. They were invited into because it's not open to the general public, but by special permission, they were able to go into the to the cult museum that was, of course, owned by the Warrens and is now owned and managed by Tony Spera, their son-in-law. And if you want to see them going through and their reaction to some of the things like the Annabelle doll for the first time, and some of the others like the Shadow doll, see their kind of unique reactions to that. Yeah, that's on Seekers of the Supernatural. And I guess it was a few weeks ago they went in there, and our friend Father Bob Bailey did bless the place because it does need to be blessed periodically. You know, I know
if they didn't bless that, how bad would it get?
That would be very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Because it has an effect on people's minds. And as you know, you probably know the story that a couple of people years ago were tempted to start taunting Annabelle. There was a priest who actually picked up Annabelle and started shaking Annabelle and saying, "You're just a doll. You're just done." Ed warned him not to do that. When he went home, fortunately, he wasn't killed, but his car went out of control. He went under a tractor trailer truck, turned his car into a convertible. You know, fortunately, he wasn't decapitated. But there was a young couple that were on a motorcycle. They came to visit, and by this time, Annabelle was behind glass. But I guess he started tapping on the glass and yelling at Annabelle, and for whatever reason, Ed asked him to leave, and Lorraine told him, "Please be careful on the way home." Well, they met with a serious accident on the way home. His motorcycle went off the road. He was killed instantly, and the girlfriend was in traction for several months. So I think if you didn't bless it, it would be much, much more active, much, much more dangerous. So it does need to be blessed periodically. It's like almost like the aura of the place and the artifacts. If you touch them, they can mingle with your aura and you can wind up with an attachment. So that some of that stuff has been used, you know, as I know personally, been used in occult practices, and can be very, very dangerous. It's not a joke. It's real. That those artifacts are very dangerous, especially the Shadow doll. That looks very, very. I mean, it's even got a human molar, the teeth in it.
Yeah, I believe the Shadow doll is pieced together with human remains.
Yes, human remains, birds, human hair, things like that. It's just very terrifying to look at, actually. And it's what people would do is they take a snapshot of it, mail it to somebody. They open it up, they see the picture. Okay, you're cursed, you know. And I wouldn't take that lightly. I would immediately ask for prayers and a blessing or something like that. That's when the doll was still being used. But everything's got a history to it. There's the White Lady of Union Graveyard. She's in Connecticut. There's a replica of her dressed in a bridal gown. So interesting.
So I had my one. I can't call it demonic, but it was definitely weird.
Yes.
I had Carl on for the first time, and Carl sent me a bunch of photos of demons that he caught. You know, on the pictures. You know, there's the green one and the red one. I'm sure you've seen the pictures.
Yes.
And I was trying to open on the show. I was trying to open both of them, and the first time they weren't there. So Carl took the time to resend them during the show, and he sent them, and I got them. And for whatever reason, my computer wouldn't open it. So I thought that was strange. So I grabbed my phone. Austin, my co-host, and he hasn't seen him yet.
Yeah.
So I just picked up my phone. I for whatever reason, my phone could pull the pictures, no problem. Mm-hmm. I show Austin both the pictures, and he literally we both stared at him for quite a while, looking at him for quite a while with Carl on. And as soon as we had looked at him, I have a trash can next to me, and it was empty. I know it was empty because I emptied it before Austin got here.
Uh-huh.
And there's 2 cans in there. They're both beer cans. And I literally heard a can. And Austin, we just had the 2. And then we went to bottles. We could tell the difference between the sound of a bottle and an aluminum can. Mm-hmm. And I shit you not, we heard the sound of an aluminum can pick up and drop.
Oh, really? Wow.
And that was enough to freak me out. I didn't tell Carl that live on the show. I just kept it to myself.
Right.
And that night, I thought I heard walking upstairs in my second floor of my house. I thought I heard walking,
Uh-huh.
and then I thought I heard walking in the kitchen at one point too. And they both times they woke me up. So I texted Carl. I'm like, this is what happened. And he's just like, immediately delete the pictures and say a couple prayers and just yell, basically just like, get out of my house. Just
Right.
let it out now and in the home. I haven't had any issues since, but that was enough to definitely freak me out because I'd never had that happen before. The sounds and stuff like that. And just like, yeah, that was, I'm not saying I had a close call. It could have been anything. It could have been my imagination running wild too, because I've been, talking paranormal for the last how many hours. But that was just wild that that experience happened after that. And then, like Carl said, delete the pictures.
Yeah.
And just
good advice. Yeah. Yeah. Very good advice.
That was pretty, to me, that was terrifying because maybe I imagined it, maybe not. I've had a couple things that are like, maybe I imagined it.
Yeah. Well, when you were going into houses, do you ever experience anything? Like when you're going in all these houses, you must.
The one time I did, there was an old ward in Sparta, and they now use it for a haunted house, Sparta, Wisconsin, which is about, if you know where La Crosse, Wisconsin is on the map, about 30 miles to the east. So just down Interstate I-90.
Mm-hmm.
And the old ward, and I thought I heard. And it was just me I know it was just me in the building because in the middle of the day, the only people who let you in is the maintenance people.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the city takes care of the building. So I got, left in there just to do fire extinguisher, just before the plumber, I'm doing fire extinguisher checks.
Yeah.
And I know, I thought I seen something move down the hall once. And then I know I heard footsteps above me at one point. I was on the first floor. I literally just started checking extinguishers. And I literally heard what sounded like walking right above me, just bump, 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 bump down the hall. Mm-hmm. And I literally looked outside. I was like, I know the guy. Like Lee just left. I just saw Lee drive away. Like, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely one that kind of made my eyebrows raise.
Oh yeah.
But my coworker Dan,
mm-hmm.
You would like Dan. Dan's a squirrely. He's an HVAC guy, but he's a squirrely guy. There's a really old house in Viroqua, which is right down the road from me. And it's called the Shirley House, one of the first houses in Viroqua. And he went there for a no heat call, and he was working on the furnace. And he heard over his shoulder, "Who are you?"
Oh.
And Dan, if you met Dan, you could just picture it. He goes, "My name is Dan Lee. I'm here to work in the furnace. Please leave me alone." But he always tells that story at the shop. It's just hilarious.
Yeah. Well, that's good that he identified himself.
Yeah, my name is Dan Lee. I'm here to work in the furnace. Please leave me alone. Just like, man, Dan, you're so rude because it's like you have to hang out and have a conversation. But,
wow. And sometimes that works. That works. Just saying, who you are, leave me alone, and I come in peace, whatever.
Yeah. Well, there's so many like La Crosse is definitely an old city in the area. Prairie du Chien is the first settled area in Wisconsin. And there's so many cool, we got like maybe I should do that one day. Just like go to so we have what they call like the Bad Axe War, like memorial sites. And Abraham Lincoln was actually part of the war, in the Black Hawk War. So he was in this area. Really? And yeah, there's like, I think, hopefully my dad's still watching, but if he could correct me, I think there's a couple different sites. I want to say there's 8, but you can stop at them, on the way. There's like little pinpoints, like, Abraham Lincoln was here. This is what happened. And I should do that one night. Just kind of, maybe I should get like a thermal imaging camera. Just kind of hang out. And I'm sure what I'll see is a lot of deer and a lot of cows because like where they all are very rural, but
right.
Neat just to like take a recorder and like a thermal imaging camera. Just kind of like just poke around to see if you see something, and at least in the distance.
Yes, indeed. If some people say that if you could hear some of the fights that Abraham Lincoln and his wife were in while they were in the White House, mostly because of her tempestuous, personality, that that would really be a residual coming through. Hear those conversations and some of the arguments they had with each other, and just makes the place come so alive.
Yeah, there's so many places like that though. Like I would love to like even like not even like America, but, like the Kremlin, like
Oh
some of
yeah,
those, behind the scenes there, like especially like after like they claimed that Hitler's skull. Like
yes,
I would love to be like in that room just like to hear the boasting from all the big heads from the
yes.
Soviet Union,
Uh-huh.
or like even like London, like during like all those fights. Like there's so much history out there. It's just amazing, and like to like not believe that certain places wouldn't be haunted. Like for instance, like Auschwitz, that place has got to be crawling with spirits.
Oh
They
yeah,
had nowhere else to go. You know what I mean? Like that's got to be, and that's a place I would never even have interest in even investigating, because those people literally paid the sacrifice for the biggest genocide in human history. Like just
yeah,
give them their respects and leave them alone.
yes,
Like that place has got the stories you can get out of there that just because it just cripple you as a human being just listening to them.
yes. I know. That's as my dad used to say, man's inhumanity to man. That's a perfect example of that.
Yeah, if walls can talk, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
man, it just like any wall, like any, just be a part of history some way somehow.
yeah,
Back then before the technology, because like now we can document all this stuff. Like hopefully 20 years from now, somebody watches this same conversation, and like we have a different way to pinpoint a lot of this now. Social media, you can pinpoint every little conversation. Like nobody in a million years could even pick up half the slander that goes on through political campaigns anymore.
yes,
Like for instance, like somebody outed RFK with that baby bear thing, like, and then he had to admit to it. Like that's you know what, 20 years ago, you would never even know about it. You know what I
right.
mean? It's crazy. That's craziness.
Yes, yes, it is. It really is. And of course, stone walls. Rocks have recording of effects. The Pizer effect. It's why crystals and watches, they have recording effects. And
Limestone is a big one.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Stanley Hotel is built on limestone, so that's one of the reasons why people think it's so haunted.
Yeah, that will help. That will help do it. Yes, exactly, exactly. Another place Carl and I worked for quite a few years as tour guides was Slater Mill, old Slater Mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I don't know if Carl mentioned that in his
Yeah,
interview.
he's mentioned that once. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that was a very, very interesting place as far as the history goes, and definitely haunted too. Definitely haunted. It's not totally frightening, but even during the daytimes, people would say, "I just got touched. I heard this. I heard that."
Yeah,
And
is there people still working here?
right, right. It seems well. I tell you, one of our supervisors was closing up for the day. He was just leaving. This is actually before Carl and I worked there, and he was alarming the place for some reason, and it was motion censored, and he was alarming the place and locking up the building, the main building of Slater Mill, the museum, and he couldn't get it to lock. For some reason, he couldn't get it to alarm, and so he called up the company, and because they have their sensors there, and said, "I'm having trouble." Activating the motion detector and locking this building. Is anything wrong with it? So they looked in their sensors. They got back to him on the phone and said, "Sir, are you sure you're alone in the building?" And he said, "Yes, I've just checked the entire building. I'm locking it up. Why?" Said, "Well, our sensors are saying that you have a room full of people upstairs walking around." And he was totally alone. And the sensor said he had a room full of people walking around. And that was the mill section. So they told him, just lock it manually and we'll send somebody up the next day. First thing the next morning, somebody came up and they checked the alarm system. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. So they never were able to explain that. Never. That was a mystery unsolved.
Yeah, there's
A lot of things that went on there.
yeah, like Villisca Axburger House too is another one mystery unsolved. That'd be a cool one to go to. The Villisca, Iowa.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That'd be a cool one, mystery unsolved. Yeah, there's so many places like in just the history. The place is just wild.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. We got to get you to the Lizzie Borden house too.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, you guys, I should just go up there for a couple weeks. And you guys just take me around wherever you guys think it'd be cool. You know,
Oh
get these
yeah,
paranormal experiences.
we got so many places. There's haunted cemeteries, of course. Now, usually the cemeteries are haunted. I mean, it's blessed ground. It's concentrated, and yet people go in there and start summoning, doing rituals, and calling up spirits, and it can become tainted. So I think that's why some spirits are drawn into haunt cemeteries like that, like Union Graveyard, who has a reputation of being haunted. But like the White Lady again, that Ed Warren was investigating, the White Lady of Union Graveyard. It seems that she makes more appearances when there's electricity in the air, when there's a lot of static in the air, like just before a thunderstorm. The more energized the atmosphere is, the more solid she will appear. And this is weird. This is a long time ago, of course, but there was two young firemen driving by the Union Cemetery in Connecticut, and a transformer blew in the area. Imagine a whole transformer blows up.
Yeah,
They drive by the cemetery. They see this lady in white just run across the road, and their vehicle impacts. They hear a thud. So naturally, they panic. They screech to a stop. They come out. There's nobody around. There's no dent in the fender or anything like that. And they remember that for the rest of their life. They still talk about that, even though it's like 40 something years later. They still talk about that. They were permanently traumatized by that.
yeah. We're approaching on 2 hours here. I could talk to you all night if you like, but I gotta work. I gotta work in the morning. I'm sure you got stuff to do tomorrow too. I want to reschedule you and Carl together. Okay. I think that'd be amazing.
Definitely.
Carl just messaged me now. I'd love to get you guys on in the future together. That'd be amazing. I think so highly what you guys have done in the field and the paranormal. Like you guys are. I get goosebumps. Like I get messages from Carl. Like, he even sent me a happy birthday one time via text message. I literally could not believe that. Like, you guys are class acts. Yeah, I definitely want to reschedule you guys for the future. I'm going to try to get more active with the show. This summer's been pretty busy. But yeah, we'll get more active with the show, and maybe I could try to sneak out to Gettysburg and meet you guys. That'd be pretty cool.
Hey, that'd be great.
Yeah. You have to hook me up with that VIP pass too, so I can meet some of the boys. But,
hey, it'd be great. Yeah.
I think it'd be a blast to go out there and just, like I said, see Annabelle, see the Shadow Doll, all that stuff. Everything up there would be so intriguing. Like, I'm sure John Zaffis has an amazing display up there. I'm sure you guys have an awesome display. I'm sure. I believe Steve goes to that one too. Steve Gonzalez.
Oh yes, Steve will be there.
I believe Jason's always there. It'd be so cool to meet all these faces that I grew up watching and just kind of make connections.
Yeah. Steve will definitely be there, and Ryan Buell, he'll be there as well.
Yeah, Ryan. See, that's a guy. Just the tribulations he had just through life. You know what I mean? Just he had his addictions and all that stuff, and he seems so much better now. He does his live stuff on Facebook once in a while. He seems like he's a totally revamped person. He seems great. I believe Overnight's gonna be up there too. Elton and his wife, and I'm sure a couple other guys will be up there.
Right. Jim Beaver's going to be there. From Supernatural.
Yep, Jim Beaver.
A lot of
he also directed The Boys on Amazon.
Oh yes, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, he'd be cool to meet.
Yeah.
I have to look at the listing, but I should try to get up there for that one. So that one's always at Gettysburg, and they always have one at Pennhurst too, right?
Yes, they do.
Did you go to that one at Pennhurst?
No, I didn't go to that one. No, but we'll be I'm planning to be at Gettysburg.
Okay.
Carl and I have always been at the Warrens Con, so
I tried to get you guys. I tried to convince Carl to come to the Wisconsin one. They had a big one this year. They do it every year, but they're actually looking for people to fill up booths last year. I was like, man, Carl, get on this. I will drive over because I know they had Jason there, and Jason did a investigation at I can't remember the name of the school now, but there's a schoolhouse there that's apparently notoriously haunted. And then Adam Berry, he's always at the Sheboygan Asylum. So yeah, I think he does up there like twice a year. I think him and Amy are up there last year together during the convention. So
yeah,
but
there
yeah, you guys are great. I will shoot you a message after the show and thank you again, because that's just how I am. The old Midwest goodbye. But yeah, thanks again for joining in, and have a good rest of your night, Keith.
Happy birthday to you.
That was a while ago. It was April, but
all right. Well, happy birthday in April.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a great night.
You too. Take care now.
And that was Keith Johnson. I don't have enough good things to say about Keith and Carl. They've definitely made this show a lot of fun for me personally. But yeah, next week we are going to be back in the studio. Me and Austin, the old 1-2 punch. We'll be back. We're, like I said before, we started the show. We're going to go over some Deadpool, some game, House of the Dragon, and then we're going to kind of continue to do more shows more frequently. I can't promise every week, but I'm going to try to do bi-weekly. I definitely think bi-weekly would be more achievable. I built this computer, so I definitely have the means to punch more content out now. I'm going to try to get better at thumbnails. I'm trying to be a little more like Tim the Tat Man and do like the fun thumbnails. And yeah, we'll definitely see what we got coming up. But yeah, I'm going to start looking for some more guests. And yeah, we're definitely going to just start doing, football season's here too. So we're going to start doing more sports, probably get a couple more guys involved with that too. So we can kind of, go nuts with, either fantasy or all that stuff. I know my brother, the Gumbo Pod, Eric, my brother Eric does a Gumbo Pod. If you need your fantasy football looks, check him out. I'm sure he's on everywhere you can get podcasts. Those guys are doing a great job. Even though I did whoop his ass last year in fantasy. Check out the Gumbo Pod. Check out Carl. Check out Keith on their YouTube stuff. And that was Near Paranormal. Thank you guys very much for listening. We're going on 2 hours here. I'm going through sinus infection. So, again, thank you guys very much. And see you probably next week. Thank you.